Attention Midwell officers, this will attention Edgar County, 103 mile marker interstate at the overpass. Have several vehicles that are at 1050s.
Tonight, we're digging deeper into a report from the National Transportation Safety Board to bring you details that shed some light on the moments that led up to that fatal crash on the cold, icy morning of January 14th, 2015.
Investigators list the probable cause as a guardrail that was protruding 2 feet into the intersection. They say the bus hit the guardrail and launched over the side of an overpass onto an oncoming train below. The report outlines exactly what led up to this crash. CBS 7's Kiara Powell has been digging through the documents all day today. She joins us now live from where the crash happened in Penwell. Kiara, where are investigators placing the blame?
According to the report, it really comes down to an issue with the guardrail. We do know it was left severely damaged after several accidents, including one that happened just minutes before this deadly crash. Heartbreaking images as bodies were pulled out of the prison bus. The bus flew off the interstate and onto a Union Pacific train below. The force of the impact blew packages across the scene. Today, images released in an NTSB report show the extent of the damage to the bus. We now know what happened. A DPS report shows the bus was traveling along Interstate 20 on an icy morning at about 57 miles per hour, well under the speed limit of 75. The bus struck a damaged guardrail with its left front tire, sending it flying off the overpass. This is the guardrail seen in a TxDOT photo snapped just one day before the fatal crash. Just 28 hours before, a car lost control on the icy overpass, striking this guardrail and damaging it. By 5:50 a.m., the morning of the fatal crash, another vehicle further damaged the railing. Finally, at 7:35 a.m., just 14 minutes before the fatal crash, a third vehicle damaged that guardrail. By the time the prison bus passed it, a witness told DPS the guardrail was sticking 2 feet out into the roadway. Now take a look at the bus's seating chart. It pinpoints the exact location of each of the passengers. Inmates were handcuffed together. According to the report, emergency responders reported difficulty getting people out due to their location in the bus, entanglement with other passengers, and handcuffs. The report goes on to say the bus was not equipped with emergency roof hatches or emergency exit windows. Texas law exempts prison buses from these mandates. Now, guys, we did reach out to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, and we received the following statement. It says in part, quote, "As an agency, we continue to mourn the lives of those lost in this accident, and we ask that the public continue to keep Officer Self and the offenders who were injured in their thoughts and prayers," end quote. Reporting live in Penwell, Kiara Powell, CBS 7 News.
Kiara, thanks very much. The report today also highlights information about the driver of the bus, 45-year-old Eligio Garcia Jr. The NTSB states that Garcia had no pre-existing medical conditions that would have affected his driving that day. While looking at his cell phone data, investigators estimate he had more than 7 hours of rest each day in the 3 days before the crash. And finally, Garcia was driving 57 miles an hour at the time. That's well below the 75-mile-per-hour speed limit.
However, the NTSB report found the TxDOT crew out of Monahans was improperly trained on how to use liquid de-icer. They say this product had never been used before in the district. While the crew did apply a brine solution to the road, they only used 30 gallons of the solution per mile, much less effective than the recommended amount of 70 gallons per mile. NTSB said that incorrect application of brine allowed ice to build up, forcing vehicles to lose control and displace the guardrail.
The NTSB also said a decision not to light a sign near the bridge warning drivers of icy conditions was a mistake. A crew supervisor said he didn't see any ice, so he did not turn on the sign. In its concluding remarks, the NTSB investigators say TxDOT failed to train personnel in accordance with the established guidelines and policies for snow and ice. The NTSB made a recommendation that TxDOT offer more training. Today, my partner Jay Hendricks talked in depth with the National Transportation Safety Board about some of the takeaways from this report. Jay?
I'm joined now by Dr. Rob Malloy. He is with the National Transportation Safety Board with the Office of Highway Safety. Dr. Malloy, good afternoon and thanks for joining us. Let's talk about this report released today about this prison bus crash. You guys focus mainly on this damaged guardrail and talk about that impact in this crash.
So when we went to look at this crash, we sent a full team looking at all the factors. When we arrived at the crash, we learned that this has been a site where there had been a number of accidents in the previous 24 hours. As a result of 3 of those accidents where vehicles lost control and hit the back of the guardrail. The guardrail had displaced into the roadway, and because then when the bus came up to the guardrail, it struck the guardrail, and we saw it immediately. Luckily, there was a police camera. We saw it immediately jump up, and we saw the guardrail move up, and then we saw it just get kind of pulled off the road. So we knew that was the main safety issue area that we saw. So that's why our report focuses on the guardrail and how they could have prevented that guardrail from becoming displaced.
You were also highly critical of TxDOT and for their treatment of the icing of the roadway. Talk about that as well, and why and that focus of your investigation.
Well, again, you know, this is obviously Texas. This area had not been doing a lot of road treatment. This was the first time they were using this liquid treatment for the de-icing. And just with the nature of the rain continuing, the light drizzle, it creates a problem of once the solution gets put on the road, it can get diluted relatively quickly. And so when they were putting the solution down, they weren't quite applying it with a high enough concentrate to prevent that dilution from affecting the roadway surface. And had they had some training that's available to them, they would have known the differences of how much to apply in different types of situations. So again, it's a complicated procedure that they were new at with this type of equipment, and that's why we made a recommendation for them to focus on that training.
Do you have confidence that perhaps they have addressed these issues now going forward?
Yes, I think they have. I mean, we brought it to their attention. We brought the resources to their attention. And I think they will be, you know, addressing it, because this is something that, again, as you deal with it locally, you learn it. And we're hoping that this now goes to the whole Texas Department of Transportation, so other jurisdictions in Texas will also gain from this training material.
Now, we know you're busy. We appreciate your time. This is all that's done, or is there more that you will have?
Thank you very much.
As far as this report.
So far as this report, this is basically what we have.
TxDOT released a statement today saying, quote, safety is of the utmost concern. TxDOT worked directly with NTSB on the investigation, and we are currently reviewing the NTSB report, end quote.
At least one of the victim's family members filed a lawsuit aimed at the state. With this new development, we talked to a local attorney about what the NTSB report could mean for litigation against the state. Attorney Justin Lowe said it still does not look good for families.
It has, through legislation, waived that sovereign immunity under certain circumstances. Those circumstances include the use of tangible, personal, or real property that causes death or personal injury. It's quite possible that TxDOT could be subject to liability on the issue.
According to Lowe, it is highly unlikely that the state would face a lawsuit because under federal law, the state can't be sued in federal court. And of course, our CBS 7 News team is still working on this story to bring you the latest information as it becomes available.
I always would set notes by his coffee cup. No matter what, I mean, this was the last thing he saw from me, and he knew. And he knew I loved him, and I know he loved me.
Family and friends recall the day a prison bus crashed on the icy roadway. Tonight, the wife of one of the victims speaks out after the release of a new report on what exactly caused the crash.
Out of the 15 passengers in the bus, only 5 made it out alive. Correctional Officer Chris Davis was one of the 10 people who didn't survive that crash. CBS 7's Deanne Lopez first spoke with his wife just days after this tragedy. They reconnected tonight to talk about the outcome of the investigation. Deanne?
Jay and Tatum, Chris was just 17 months away from retiring before his life was taken at just 53 years old. But his wife, Donna, says he lived a life filled with no regrets.
I don't think the days get easier. They just get different. You become more accepting and your reality changes.
Chris Davis had 2 loves in life, his wife and his Harley Davidson. For 17 and a half years, Chris worked as a correctional officer for the Middleton unit in Abilene. A thankless job is how his wife describes it, which he did with pride. What Donna says she misses the most are the smiles her husband would put on her face every day.
He was a guy that his coworkers could depend on. He was a very humble guy, and I was telling friends today that he would be embarrassed by all the attention he's getting now because it wasn't something that he seeked.
When news broke today that a damaged guardrail 2 feet into the roadway is officially to blame for her husband's death, Donna wasn't surprised.
I really haven't had time to digest the entire report. This week I'm focusing on my husband and approximately 130 other officers being honored during National Police Week in Washington, D.C.
Donna plans on focusing more on the findings of the report when she returns from honoring her husband.
I always told Chris, you know, I don't want to be one of those people that when we retire we have all this money and then get diagnosed with something bad. Let's live it now. I can honestly say I have no regrets.
Reporting for CBS 7 News, Deanne Lopez.
Deanne, thanks very much. Here's a look at the people who died in that crash. Along with 8 prisoners who were being transported from Abilene to El Paso, 2 officers were also killed, Christopher Davis and Eligio Garcia.
We have new developments tonight as we dig even deeper into a report by the National Transportation Safety Board on the cause of a fatal prison bus crash.
Take a look at this seating chart. Only 1 set of seats on the bus remained fully attached to the floor. First responders say they had to pull bodies out of a mangled mess of metal and seats.
CBS 7's Kiara Powell looks deeper into why those seats did not stay bolted down. Kiara?
When we take a closer look at the interviews from the scene, one of the things that stood out, not just to us, but to those who responded, was the fact that while some of the bus shells survived the crash, the seats did not. 17 pairs of seats were all torn out from the floors and sidewalls after a prison bus flew off the interstate when it struck a guardrail protruding into the highway. It was so violent it dislodged the cab from the body of the truck and ejected the 2 people in the front seat, killing them. According to the NTSB report, the bus was relatively new, one of 20 new buses built by Bluebird Corporation and modified by the TDCJ to serve as a prison transport vehicle. The bus had been in service for less than 6 months. The bus arrives at the TDCJ without any seats. The state then installs a security package with grated iron cage walls. Rows 8 and 9 at the back of the bus were the only set of seats which stayed attached to the bus or partially attached. The rest of the seats were all, quote, torn out from the floor and sidewall. First responders had to throw out seats to get inside. Inside a 28-page survival factors report, TDCJ representatives told the NTSB its Bluebird bus vendor and Freedom Seat vendor, the Rush Bus Center, did not provide seat fasteners it requested when it bought the equipment. So the TDCJ manufacturing, logistics, and division plant manager purchased what he thought were the appropriate fasteners to install the seats. This is what they used, a 1 1/4 inch screw to secure the seat. A bus manufacturing representative told the NTSB they always use a thicker 2-inch bolts like this one to secure the seats. So if the bus comes to the TDCJ empty on the inside, who is responsible for installing these prison bus seats? The offenders themselves. According to a report, the offenders install the seats with no template or directions, making each bus a custom project. Live in the newsroom, Kiara Powell, CBS 7 News.
Kiara, thank you. We also reached out to the TDCJ about what we uncovered in the report. We asked whether they would change the transportation protocol or the way they outfit these buses in light of this crash. The state said, quote, no, as the report confirmed, there were no policy violations that contributed to the accident. A damaged guardrail lying on the roadway caused the bus to crash, end quote.
We also reached out to the manufacturer of the prison bus seats. Their executive vice president has not yet read the report, saying, quote, when we make the seats, we make them to be compliant. The attachment of the seats to the vehicle is always the responsibility of the installer. We make recommendations, but it is just that, a recommendation.
All new tonight at 6 o'clock, we're getting our first look at the moments leading up to the tragic prison bus crash in Penwell that killed 10 people. According to a report released by the NTSB back in May, severe damage to a guardrail was one of the key factors in this crash. We've shown you the aftermath and the diagrams of that crash site, but now we can show you firsthand the role those guardrails played.
Tonight, CBS 7 has exclusive dash cam video from the scene as the crash happens. We want to warn you this footage may be hard to watch. CBS 7's Alexa Dunson walks us through the gut-wrenching moments.
are placed in the ground here in Penwell in remembrance of the 10 lives that were lost a year and a half ago. According to the NTSB, this guardrail, which as you can see, damaged once again, was one of the main reasons the bus flew down this embankment and into an oncoming train. January 14th, 2015. A cold and rainy morning when a Texas Department of Correctional Justice bus flew off I-20. 10 people died. For the first time, dashcam video from a DPS trooper working a crash just moments before is released. You can see the bus pass the DPS dashcam when it strikes the guardrail, loses control, and flies down the embankment. On the right-hand side of your screen, you can just make out a Union Pacific train moving below. The bus slammed right into it. An NTSB report released in May said the damaged guardrail was to blame. The report states the guardrail could have prevented the bus from falling off the overpass. We requested this video so you can see firsthand. Now let's rewind. Just 14 minutes before, a truck hit the guardrail, leaving it partially in the roadway. It was sticking out just enough for the bus to collide with it and crash into the moving train below. When we first learned the guardrail was to blame in the NTSB report, we sent a request for that video. It's unclear why DPS just now released the footage. As for the victims of the families, the ones we spoke to say they've never seen the video. Some still trying to sue the state for what happened here. We're live in Ector County. Alexa Dunson, CBS 7 News.